I've been sort of little, just not really satisfied with and I think it's good to be not satisfied, because that's where growth comes from. It's sort of like when you're working out, and you have to exhaust your muscles in order to grow some muscles. You can't just be satisfied with the way you are and expect yourself to be well and to be healthy and to be strong. You have to challenge yourself. You have to challenge yourself, push yourself. And so, from an emotional way or a mental way as well, you have to challenge yourself. You have to make a determination that this is, I have to find an answer greater and deeper than this. And you can find those answers in quiet time and in meditation. And for me, this is just part of the journey. And what I found I'd like to share with you. Because part of my frustration is, I try to help folks, especially like with this program. If I see something that's not quite right in your life and it's obvious to me, it's just, hey, this is the answer. And I would expect that would be enough. That's how I see myself. That's how I try to walk through this thing, man. You know what, I mean, every time I go to the grocery store, I'm always buying magazines. I'm buying spirituality and health. I'm buying good eating, nature's bounty and healthy, all those kind of books, martial art books, running books, anything that I can find something that I could use and apply to my life to make myself better, I do. And as far as books, man, I read probably like 20 or 30 books a year. I know that's not a lot, but I read them over and over again. I audible read them, so I'm not actually reading them. But so I'll take a book and I'll maybe read it 10 times, in the course of a week and a half. And that's the wonderful thing about my job. But so I'm always trying to improve myself, always trying to find out a way to do something better. And that's why I'm on the health kick that I'm on. That's why I know which foods to eat, and many of the things that I do that are good for me. That's why I got into the real estate. I mean, I knew about real estate, but I got this book called How to Buy Bank-Owned Properties, and I studied that for like 30 days. And within a month after that, I bought my first property. So. I'm always seeking, always striving. So I'm thinking that when the light bulb goes off or when I have some revelation, man, I run with it. And so that's what I think that everybody needs. But everybody's not wired like me. Everybody's not wired like you. And my expectations of folks are just, you cannot expect people to be like you. I think that's what I've come to realize in this journey. And so what I've begun to do is just begin working on myself. And really, in a sense, that's what the journey was about, and that was the conclusion I came up with to work on myself. Now, I've been presenting some programs over the past 4 weeks while I've been on this journey, and even in retrospect, as I look back at the content and the subject of those programs, these have been like messages to me, part of this process that I have been on. So I've been walking this process out with you guys, if you guys have been with me, through the course of the past few weeks. And we're talking about the mirror. We're talking about the three treasures, and the three treasures of the treasure that is the sword, and the treasure that is the gold, and then the treasure that is the mirror. And out of those three treasures, the greatest treasure is the mirror. Why? Because it allows you to see yourself. It allows you to see truth about yourself. See, those are the things we don't ordinarily look at. We try to define the truth in everybody else. And I'm not even saying we actually see the truth, because we don't know the individual. We try to define the truth in everybody else, but we shun the truth about ourselves. And so we're walking around with so many issues in our lives that are not allowing us to progress. And I think we want to progress. And so when I came to the end of this journey last night, I realized it was like this is the first time I felt like I could breathe, like in like 20 or so years. And I've been doing good stuff. I've been healthy. I've been all right. But it was like I knew I was at the end of that journey. Because I realized the thing, to stop trying so hard, to begin self-improvement. Let me tell you a little story about the bird. There's a story, it's an Indian story from hundreds of years ago, not Native American, but India, about an Indian merchant. And that Indian merchant decided he wanted to go to Africa to pick up some artifacts, for his store. And so when he got to Africa, he went to the jungle. And when he was in the jungle, he saw this community of beautiful talking parrots. And he was amazed. And he determined that he was going to capture one of those talking parrots and take it home and keep it as his pet. And so that's what he did. He took the parrot home. He had a nice little cage, put it in a cage, and he fed it, took care of it, talked to it all the time. He took care of that parrot very well. Two years later, he decided to go back to Africa. And so he said to his parrot, I'm going back to Africa. Do you want me to give a message to your friends back there? And the parrot said, yes. He said, when you get there, tell my friends that I'm very happy in my cage, that I'm doing just fine. And he said, okay, I will. And so the merchant went to Africa and found the parrots and relayed his parrot's message to his friends that he's doing very well in his cage. He's very happy there. And just when he finished telling him that story, one of the parrots stood up, walked up, tears welling up in his eyes, fell over dead. And the merchant was kind of shocked at first, but then he realized, this parrot hearing about his friend, it must have just been too much for him to bear, and he just passed away. And so when the merchant went home, he went to his parrot, he told the parrot exactly what had happened. And when the parrot heard this story, tears welled up in his eyes. And he fell down to one knee and then fell over dead. And the merchant figured, oh, well, it must have just been too much for him to bear, hearing of the demise of his friend. It was just, he just died. So he took his parrot out to the trash heap, put him out on the trash heap, and as soon as the parrot hit the trash heap, it got up and flew to a high tree. And the merchant was amazed. He says, what's going on? You were faking like you were dead? Why'd you do that? Why'd you trick me? And the parrot said, that parrot in the jungle sent me a very important message. And the merchant said, well, what was the message? What did he tell you? He said, he told me that if I wanted to be free of my cage, I had to die while I was alive. If I wanted to be free of my cage, I had to die while I was alive. Very interesting. We're all in cages. We're all hampered by cages in our lives. All the issues that we have are actually cages. The attitudes that we have are often cages. The value systems that we have embraced, the things that we must do, the things that we must be are often cages, and they're keeping us from progressing. Look at like with the white folks, that really embrace that Confederate flag, that are having a hard time dealing with this transition. Even the Confederate flag itself is a cage. And as a human being, that something that is inanimate, an object like that, means so much. And so we all have these cages. And what I'm believing is that these cages that we have are often a result of improper teaching. Okay? I mean, even as far as the folks out there protesting, the Confederate flag removal and all this stuff. I mean, why is that? And so really what it is, when you look back, the culprit, I think, is our educational system. The culprit, I think, is our history lessons and the history books that don't really paint a proper picture of history. And so the foundation of so many people that are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old right now, the foundation of their insight, of their understanding of things is built on false premises that were given to them all through school all through their schooling, their matriculation process on this particular history, okay? Even, a woman the other day was talking about, that all the flag was really just a way to honor, the brave fighting, of their ancestors, the bravery of those men. And when I asked her, I said, once we defeat ISIS, would it be okay if the descendants of those soldiers, the ISIS warriors, were living in the United States, were just to be flying the ISIS flag? Would that be okay with us? Well, of course not. Well, what's the difference? See, but if you put 100 or so years, 200 or so years between defeating ISIS and now, and begin teaching a watered down version of what really happened, the descendants of those folks that were ISIS might be seeing their ancestors in a different light than the things that they actually really did. Okay, that's all I'm saying. And I had to take it there because I know to this individual, ISIS would be a real negative thing. So I tried to share with, well, the Confederate flag, to these folks is no different than that black ISIS flag is to us, okay? So as you begin to consider it from a different perspective, you might be able to see, but I think it's the education that we're given. If it's false, we're going to come up with false ideologies as we grow older based on the information that we're fed. And so then when I look at African Americans today, and what I was considering today was like the hair products. I was considering how far we go to look a particular way, and I guess I have to put this on the women because men are lucky. We don't have the issues that they have. But it's like the pains that women go through, black women go through to straighten their hair. And what I'm suggesting is it's the look. However you want to believe that it looks better. And if we believe that it looks better, it's simply because, why do you believe that it looks better? It's simply because of the programming. It's what we have been raised to believe. There's a deep subconscious issue that we have that the straighter your hair, the prettier it is. There's a deep subconscious issue that we have that the lighter your skin are, the finer you are. See, we have the pointier your nose is, the better you are. I mean, come on, we have all these issues now. Where do we think these issues came from? They came from hundreds and hundreds of years of programming. I mean, when you have a situation when you are being dominated by a particular group, that group that's putting out the images of what is beautiful or what is not, or what is Miss America and what is not, and the attributes that someone has. I mean, come on now. This is going to become ingrained in the minds of every person in that nation, including black folks. And so we have a lot of issues today that we're walking around with that we don't even realize. When you can take When you can take the hair of somebody else and tie it to your head and pretend that it's your hair, come on now. What is that saying about the perception of yourself, your own self-image? I mean, that's just a simple reality. There are some deep, deep issues that we have, and what I'm suggesting is these issues are those cages that we're in, and we've been in these cages so long, we don't even recognize that there's something wrong with us. And so, of course, the natural, who wants to wear a natural? Well, why not? And when I'm asking that question, I'm not saying, well, why not? I'm saying, why not? Why is it we have determined that looks so bad? I mean, maybe I'm in the same boat. I'm just saying there has to come a point where we can challenge ourselves. Why do we feel the natural attributes of a black person is not good, and we try to change it? I see it like a river that's flowing. Okay, it's flowing in a particular direction, and we're like walking against the flow, trying to get up this river, walking against, the current. Very difficult, when we could just turn around and just go with the flow, and it'd be a lot easier, smooth riding. This is what we do, and this is where we're at. And what I'm suggesting is these are some very important questions that have to be answered. And so in our minds we're saying, and I know black folks are saying, black women, black men, no, I don't want to go back there again. We don't want the fro. We don't want the fro and all this stuff because this works. This looks good. I like this. It's easier to manage. But what I'm going to suggest to you today, because I came up in the 70s and the fros were cool. Nothing more beautiful than a black girl with the afro puffs or afro and all that stuff. I loved it back in them days. And I remember when I was in the military in the 70s, late 70s, in Korea, and the Chinese girls, and Taiwanese girls, and the Chinese girls, and the Koreans, and many of them, they had their hair in afros, and they had the afro puffs, and they were, because they understood or they saw how good it looked. What I'm suggesting is we might say now that it doesn't look good. This is 2015. We don't like that look. But I'm going to suggest to you today, when the natural came out, they were coming off and people were straightening their hair prior to that. I think it was like Abby Lincoln was one of the first women that was out there that really pushed the fro look, and it just really caught on. But before the afros came out back in the 60s and all, or the late 60s and the 70s or so, everybody was straightening their hair. So it's not like this is something altogether new. It was something that had to get used to, okay? And I'm not even pushing that. Some of y'all know, if you've been with me a while, about 5 years ago, I was pushing that. We need to get back to the afros. All I'm saying is that I'm not pushing anybody to get back to the Afros. I'm just saying we need to really begin to introspect and ask ourselves why we are the way we are, and even the things that we think looks good. Why do we think they look good? These are questions that have to be asked. These are journeys that have to be taken, because it's like we have this negative self-image. And I don't know what your answer is. But I think it's something that we really have to examine. Are these cages that we're in? We talked a couple of weeks ago about the cave, Plato's cave. About how these individuals were sitting down in this cave, in this deep, deep, dark, cavernous cave, and they were chained to a seat that was facing a wall. And they had been there for generations and generations. Now this is a philosopher. They had been there for generations and generations and generations. We'll have to wait for that airplane to pass. And in front of him was this wall. Now behind him was like a bridge. And behind the bridge was flames, a fire, a great light, okay? And walking across this bridge were people, were animals, people carrying things, people going about their everyday lives. But because that fire was behind the people that were walking across this bridge, that fire would make shadows on the wall before these people that were chained of all kinds of odd shapes and scary looking figures, you know, shadows and all before them. They couldn't see the people, all they could see was these shadows. They could hear all the voices behind them and all the goings on, all the noise, all the hustle, all the bustle. But what they saw as a reality of humans, or of the reality, were these shadows on these walls, these grotesque, great looking shadows. That was reality to them for generations upon generations. And then one of the guys somehow escaped and made his way up out of the cave. But as he was leaving, he noticed what was going on. And he saw all his people there chained up. And he saw the bridge. He saw the people crossing. He saw the fire. He saw that the fire was making reflections on the walls. That the walls were not reality, but the reality were the people behind these chained up folks. But he kept going, and he made his way up and up and up. And finally he got out to freedom, out into the sunlight. But even when he got into the sunlight, he couldn't see, because he had spent all his life in this cave, and his eyes, he had to shade his eyes, and he could open them just barely, and he could just barely make out still figures and grotesque figures even in the light, because the light was too bright. But in time, he began to see the reality of the world. And he was just chilling, he was just resting, enjoying the beautiful, environment. And he came to a point where he realized he had to go back down to that cave and tell all those folks the truth. And so he made his way back down to the cave, came to his friends that were all tied up, family members and friends, and began to tell them about reality, about how those figures aren't real, and there's something different outside. There's light, and there's beauty, and there's water, and there's sunlight, and there's grass, and there's trees, and they just ridiculed him and laughed at him. They just thought he was crazy, because that was the most ridiculous story they'd ever heard. When I'm suggesting to you today, there is a different world outside of the world that you're in. And we have all of these images even within us that have been given to us from childhood and on, and even before childhood, like a lot of these issues that we have taken on that are anti-black characteristics and traits, and even sort of attitudes that sort of dictate how we live our lives. Even the foods that we eat, black folks' foods, soul foods that are killing us. Why are we eating that stuff? So many things that we have embraced that we are not doing that we should be doing, or that we are doing that we shouldn't be doing, that are destructive to our lives. We just need to begin to even take our own journeys and find our own ways, because I can't tell you your way. I can just show you how to get there simply, and then discover your own path in the midst of that. It's just to take a deep look in that mirror and be critical of yourself, and begin to determine the things that shouldn't be there, that are, or the things that are not there that should be there. About the house that I bought in Trotwood that I've been working on for some time, and I have the front of it looking so good. I have the manicured lawn, the bushes look like bonsai trees. It's just cleaned up, looking real good. The backyard's kind of jacked up, still kind of messed up. And so recently, even as I've been on this journey, I've been going over there a couple times a week for hours and hours, just working on that backyard, getting the poison ivy up, getting the weeds up, trying to get up the overgrown grass and shrubberies and all that. Man, it's a mess back there. All the front looks great, sort of like we are sometimes. We keep this real great image out there. We're looking good, but we have a lot of issues in our backyard or in our inside, okay? So I'm working on that. But you know, it's real funny. The other day I was back there and I was just cleaning up these shrubs and this grass and these weeds that had overgrown, just trying to get it all in the mud, just trying to get down in there. And as I was getting stuff away, you know what I found? I found these little, those little cement step walkways in the yards. I found those that were buried deep, deep beneath all this overgrown stuff. And I realized that the owners, past owners, somewhere down that path had really taken the time to make this yard look good, but it had grown over. So what I'm suggesting is that although it didn't look like it in that backyard, beneath all that mess is that beauty that was in there. And all I have to do is clear away all the junk that is overgrown. It's all been there for years and years and years. It shouldn't be there. And once I clear away that stuff, what is beautiful will begin to manifest. And what I'm suggesting is, and I'm correlating that to you, I'm sure you've already gotten it, is our lives, is that we need to begin to clear all the junk out of our lives, clear all that stuff that's not supposed to be there. You know, I exercise. You know, I try to eat right. I exercise every day, but I don't overdo it. I just try to stay healthy, okay? I'm going to be 57 this year, and I got a 10-year-old daughter. Come on now, she didn't ask to be born to an old man, so the least I can do is stay healthy. It's like when I'm in the neighborhoods and when I'm anywhere, even watching TV or anywhere out and about, and I see somebody that's like maybe real giant and morbidly obese, or somebody that's in terrible shape, or even, or somebody that's maybe drug addicted and homeless and jacked up, and whatever the issue is. What I see in that individual is the potential for that perfect human being is in that. Say you take somebody that's like 400 pounds overweight and just messed up, eating wrong, cholesterol's jacked, knees are hurting, backs hurting, just all messed up. But I see within that person within all that is that perfect person inside, that if all this stuff would be to melt away. That perfect person. That's what I see. We all have that potential if we just do what needs to be done. That perfect body is in there. That perfect healthy body is in there. We need to get there. I believe it can be done. But I believe sometimes it looks so hopeless, it looks so unattainable that we end up continuing down the path we're continuing just because of mere depression. But I'm suggesting today that just realize that as we begin to clear out the things that aren't supposed to be there, that which is supposed to be there will begin to manifest, will begin to shine, okay? And so what I'm suggesting to folks is that you just take a year off. Come on, how long have you been at it? Say it's overeating. How long have you been at it? Say it's the drug use. Say whatever the issue is, how long have you been, and suppose it's a bad job situation and education is the key. How long has it been like this? What I'm saying is just take a year off. And don't obsess for anything else. Just obsess with getting yourself together. Obsess with beginning to eat right. Obsess with eating fruits instead of chips. Obsess with exercising just a little at a time and getting more and more and more and more. Things will begin to change. The education the same. This old, I'll be getting my degree. I got my associate degree about 3 years ago, in my 50s. I'll be getting my bachelor's degree in about 4 classes. I don't even know, but anything is possible is what I'm saying. Now, if I had been like 25 years old, I could have really used it. I may not even use it now, but I'm just saying, just from what I've done, I'm giving you an example that the education can be accomplished. My weight right now, I'm like 20, 25 pounds less than I was 2 years ago because of my new diet, what I'm eating. Not a diet, but my new diet, what I eat now, and the exercises that I'm doing. What I'm saying is, we just need to take the time out and stop obsessing with things that are not attainable, and even obsessing with things that are sending us spiraling in the wrong direction, and begin obsessing with things that are good for us. Things will change for the better, for real. It can be done. I think we owe it not just to ourselves, but we owe it to our children. To realize the cages that we're in, the value systems that aren't doing us any good, the things that we obsess with that are harming us. And change. It can be done. So I'm working on that house back there, man. And this journey that I've been on, I've just begun learning so many things. I mean, I was just working on it, and I just knew that by the time I was done, I would understand something, I would know something, but I got that now. Now I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to clean up that house. I'm trying to make it to like a house of peace, like a sanctuary, not a church, but like a sanctuary, a place of peace, where folks that are seeking wellness can just come and talk and reason and be motivated by other folks and get there. So it looks like probably another year working on that place, but this particular part of my journey is done. And I just want to suggest to you that we all can take this journey. I mean, your destination will lead you to somewhere else, but ultimately what you're going to find is that we are in cages that are not us. And I think that's the problem, is that even when we're talking about the black hair or the color of one's skin, or how we view ourselves even as a race of people, these are our cages. These are the things that we're trapped in. And we just need to be free, and we can be free. How's that? Well, I hope you kind of, it maybe seemed like I was rambling, but just really trying to make a point that don't settle for where you're at. If it's not a positive thing, don't settle for making no money. Don't settle for being not healthy. Don't settle for being overweight or underweight or just not in good health. Don't settle for that. Life is too short to waste it. For real. But anyway, I guess without further ado, I will bid you farewell. And I do want to thank you once again for joining me and listening.